Welcome back everyone. Hi, if you're new, I'm Tori, and today I'm going to share with you some books that I finished a while ago. I do have several books that I finished a lot more recently. One of those is Lightbringer, and spoiler alert, it was amazing, but that book and a few others are going to be in a next update video. For now, I do have quite a few that I want to take you through that I've read and enjoyed in the last, actually maybe 3 months or so. So I hope you all enjoy this video, and I hope you all have been reading some really great books recently. Let's get into it. Let's get into The Last Town by Blake Crouch. This is the third and final book in the Wayward Pines trilogy. This entire trilogy was so good. I think at this point my favorite might be a tie between book 1 Pines and this last book. This last book was so good, and the ending, like the very last page of this book, just it put almost like the entire series into a new perspective. This was amazing. This entire trilogy truly has just been a wild ride. I have enjoyed every second of it. If you all are just unfamiliar with the entire trilogy, we're following main character Ethan Burke, and he's sent to the town of Wayward Pines in Idaho to find out what happened to 2 other federal agents who went missing in the town. We really just go from there as Ethan is trying to uncover the secrets of Wayward Pines. And so that's really what book 1 is focusing on, the secrets, and just you are caught up in this mystery, and the town is really creepy and everything is just unsettling and so weird. And the first book is an absolute ride. And then the second book, this is when things kind of slow down a little bit because now you know what's happening in Wayward Pines. And this book is more of a like, where do we take it from here kind of story, and you have people stepping up in different ways. This one was still great, but definitely a shift in tone because, you know, the first one was just this whirlwind of trying to figure out what's going on, and you have all these twists and turns. And then The Last Town, this was so good. This is just this is an action book pretty much. There's so much action in this. In a lot of ways, it's also mixing in horror elements too. And it is just a ride from start to finish. And I'm telling you, that last page, I gasped. Go read the Wayward Pines trilogy. I love this. Next, I read The Lives of Locke, Lamora by Lynch, and I buddy read this with Ty from Ty's Book Corner a while ago. So I'm just now getting around to actually talking about it. This was actually a reread for me. I read this book for the first time back in 2016, but on the reread, I was very surprised by how much I did not remember. There were some major things happening that I was like, I have no memory of this ever occurring. I had a really good time making my way through this, especially reading it with Ty. Her commentary and just hearing her thoughts throughout the book were just the best part of reading this, quite honestly, and just seeing what she was thinking as she's reading it for the first time. Now I feel like my memory is refreshed enough where I can actually go into book 2, Red Seas Under Red Skies. So yeah, this was great. Really happy to finally reread this. But I will say, when I read this book years ago, I remember I loved it. Like I don't talk about star ratings, but I gave this book 5 stars on Goodreads. Love the book. The second time around, I still really like it, but I think I like it just a little bit less than I did the first time around. I know one of the big things a lot of readers love with this entire series is the relationship between Locke and Jean. I love that aspect as well, but actually I think my favorite part of this is the setting itself. Camorra just feels so rich. The way that Lynch kind of paints the canals and the alleyways, it just feels really vivid while you're reading it. So I just love that immersive feeling while reading this book. And the setting in this I just thought was perfect. So that's one of my favorite aspects, but obviously I do love Locke and Jean and their banter and their brotherhood. So this was great. Cannot wait to get into book 2. Next, I read a recent sci-fi release, and that is The Blighted Stars by Megan E. O'Keefe. This is book 1 in the Devoured Worlds series trilogy. I don't know what this is going to be. Book 2 is coming out really soon, which I was not anticipating at all, but book 2 is coming out this year. I really enjoyed this. This is quite different from the Protectorate trilogy, if you all are familiar with that, you know, Velocity Weapon, Chaos Vector, that whole series. This is sci-fi, but there are little aspects of romance in there. And I would say that's my least favorite part of this book because I was just not buying the romance between our 2 main characters. In this, we have these corporate families, and, you know, they're in charge of different things. And one of the main corporate families is the Mercator family, and the heir, Tarquin, he is sent on this expedition by his father to this planet to kind of oversee their mining process on the planet. And Tarquin, he has this thing where he's trying to be the good guy, doesn't want to be like his father, but something happens at the very beginning of the book, and Tarquin, along with some of his other family's employees, end up getting stranded on this planet. And then we have our other main character, Naira, who disguises herself as Tarquin's bodyguard in order to try to take this family down. But along the way, you know, they get a little bit closer, and I'm sure you know what happens from there. I did really enjoy the technology in this and just that corporate aspect. I do wish we got a little bit more of the corporate dynamics between all of the different families, which I hope we'll get a little bit more of in book 2. I do think this book is a little bit too long. There's just so much time that Naira and Tarquin are spending kind of walking across this planet when they're uncovering different secrets about the mining process and everything. It does start to pick up and get a little bit more action-packed at the end, but I just think there's a lot of meandering happening in the middle that just kind of felt a little unnecessary. But overall, this was great. I enjoyed it, and I will be reading book 2. Next, I have a book that I talked a little bit about in my mid-year freakout, but this is now one of my favorite reads of 2023, and that is How High We Go in the Dark by Sequoia Nagamatsu. I love this book so much. This was just perfect. This was beautiful and heartbreaking, and just the scope of the story I thought was excellent. Of all the books I've read and talked about this year, if there is one that I can just really push on you, like, please go pick this book up. So the novel is broken up into a lot of different stories that all follow one like kind of overarching story arc, and it's so good. Actually, the first story begins in 2030, and we're following this man, this husband and father, and he goes to the Arctic Circle in order to pick up research that his daughter was working on after her untimely death. And while he's there, he's learning more about what his daughter studied, picking up in her footsteps, and it turns out that she was studying this virus that's been frozen for centuries at this point, and the virus is released once the ice starts to melt. Virus gets out, and we have a book. And from there, we're following the impact of this virus around the world. But at the same time, it's not really all about that. And while we're watching people who are impacted by the virus, it's more about just these really human and heartfelt moments. You still have people struggling with everyday things, everyday relationships. It's also about some of these horrific industries that, you know, that come out of necessity because of this virus. So I love this so much. And the cast of characters is pretty large, so you're not really about to get tied down to one person. You're not really supposed to get attached to a particular character. It just becomes about those feelings that I think all of us can relate to, you know, heartbreak and loss and love, and just trying to be resilient in the face of unprecedented disasters. It's truly beautiful. It really, really is. Highly, highly recommend this book. I am confident this will be somewhere in my top 10 best books of 2023. Look, next I have another sci-fi book that I talked about when I think I was reaching the midway point or already at the midway point, but I finished it. This was so good. It's The Stars Undying by Emery. I will just say now, this is not going to be for everybody. I will say if you want to give this a try and you don't like this book by like page 75, you're really gonna hate it. So just go in knowing that it's not gonna work for everybody, but I loved this book. This book is inspired by Cleopatra, Julius Caesar, and Mark Antony. The scheming, the political scheming in this book, the manipulation is on another level. Our main character, Altagracia or Gracia, she's a twin, and her father just died, and her sister took over control of the planet. And so now Gracia is trying to do whatever she can to get control of the planet, to get back on the throne. And in order to do that, she aligns herself with this commander from another planet. And the two of them together is just really something else. Then you also have the character who's supposed to be like the Mark Antony of the group. This is really good. But what I really love about this book, which I also think is not going to work for everybody, is the fact that the main character is extremely unreliable. She will even go so far as to break the fourth wall and tell you when she is lying about something, like something that happened, you know, 50 pages ago. She's like, actually, you know, let's go back to that time, and that actually didn't really happen like that. And as the reader, you're just like, I can't believe you lied to me. So it's so good, you guys. If this even just sounds remotely interesting, I would recommend just giving it a try, seeing if you know, get along with the tone of the book, the pacing, the character voice. But I loved it. Really loved this book. This was great. And then I have the big one. This is obviously one of my favorite books of the year. That's Dark Age by Pierce Brown. This is book 5 in the Red Rising series. Dark Age is brutal. It's devastating. The depiction of war on our character's side and then the enemy side, I think, is done just masterfully. It's so brilliant. The way that we really get into the enemy perspective will have you thinking like, you know, actually, you know, they have a point, or I can see their side. And it's just, I can't even really explain it, but the way that it's done is just so good throughout this entire book. And in Dark Age now, we've just reached a point where it is all out war, and the characters on both sides are giving it their all. Like they're scheming, even allies, the way that they can turn against each other or try to manipulate each other. It's just, it is so wild. I feel like if I just keep talking about it, I'm gonna keep rambling, but Dark Age was incredible. And just even thinking about this book, I feel like we don't give Iron Gold enough credit. Iron Gold was such a great start to this portion of the saga. It laid a great foundation so that something like Dark Age could be this great. I loved it. I loved it, but this is going to be in the next video. I loved Lightbringer just a little bit more. So we're going to get into that too. But Dark Age, you guys, is incredible. If you all are still not reading the Red Rising saga, I really need you to get on it. Go back, pick up Red Rising, and it just gets better and better and better with each book in the series. This is one of the best series I've ever read. My favorite series of all time. I loved it. So that is it for me, you guys. Thank you all so much for watching this video. I really appreciate it. Let me know down in the comments what you've been reading recently. If you've read any of these, I want to hear your thoughts on them. And I will see you guys in the next video. And I promise it won't take forever this time. But until next time, take care.